Do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a proven roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. We walk you through the exact same process that we use to run franchise marketing campaigns for our clients at scale that has resulted in triple-digit growth. This blueprint isn't for anyone. It's not for people just starting a franchise. It's not for franchises without long-term goals. This is for franchises that want to scale up their marketing in a predictable and profitable way using a proven roadmap. If you want to sell more franchises, keep your current franchisees happy, and learn from people who have already done it, go to franchisegrowthblueprint.com and sign up today. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Franchise Marketing Podcast. I'm so happy that you are listening today because we have a very special episode. This one's going to be a little different. It is something I'm calling the Franchise Journey, where we speak with up-and-coming franchise founders and leaders in the space to learn about their story on a recurring basis and how they're growing. So the very first guest, super excited, is Anthony McNeil of Premier Floorball. Anthony, welcome.
Well, Jordan, thank you very much for having me, and it's an honor to be the first on your journey and going along this path of introducing emerging and startup franchisors. Of course.
It's always great to hear from both, franchise leaders who have, already made it to ones that are up and coming. So for those who don't necessarily know the Premier Floorball brand, could you give us a brief overview of it and, how you got started?
Yeah, well, Premier Floorball evolved. It wasn't something that I necessarily felt at any point during my floorball career that it could actually take shape in the form of franchise. But 8 or 9 years ago, when I first got exposed to floorball, it actually happened because my son saw a video of a really cool Zorro move. It's a way of spinning the ball and keeping it on your stick and doing really neat tricks. And we've seen it happen a few times with some of the European players behind the net with the hockey pucks, which is arguably a lacrosse or a floorball Zorro. And then, brought it out to a few schools, and the schools started liking it, and they wanted to know more about it, where to buy equipment. And so I got involved with a distributor in Toronto that sold equipment, and we started putting sticks in schools in this area. Eventually, Hockey Canada got involved and created their own floorball program as an introduction to hockey and a chance for them to help children who never played hockey learn in a safe environment how to play hockey, but also an opportunity for existing hockey players to hone their hockey skills off ice in a sport that resembles hockey, but not necessarily is like hockey. And so once they got involved and schools started playing, the demand increased for more clubs to open outside of the school. And we went down that path of opening a couple of clubs, but quickly realized that we had really a no-name sport, and it was really difficult to find volunteers. And what volunteers we could find, it was even more challenging for them to commit to showing up every time. So my business mind of 30 years kicked into gear and said, the only way we're going to really grow this sport is that we need to find a way to make it it's scalable and systemized and standardized. And the only way I knew about was my former early years in franchising was, hey, if we built a franchise model, then at least we get some owners involved. They would have some skin in the game. We would teach them and train them and provide them all the tools they needed to start this sport in their community. And then we'd be assured that at least it followed a similar kind of play and rules and conduct and policies, and like every franchise system, and we could literally go anywhere we wanted to go with the sport. We partnered with Floorball Canada as a approved supplier of theirs, and here we are. We're now out into the market in what I call a kind of a new sport model in the organized sport industry, in that most organized sport in are community-based and community volunteer run. But we're kind of a private brand coming into that space.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that that journey. So how many franchisees do you have right now?
Currently, we have two, and they're close to home, and they've been with us now. One just signed on January past, and one is still under the licensing agreement from a few years ago, and they've been very instrumental in helping us get to where we are. Basically, have been our beta franchises and licenses for the last 3-4 years, and allow us to experiment and learn things about being in business with a sport, a youth sport, and helped us create a lot of programs that are instrumental in getting kids engaged, trying floorball in a safe, low-risk environment, and then ultimately getting them to where they can play in a lot of clubs and leagues within their community.
Very cool. So you mentioned a lot about learning and experimenting, and these two franchisees being kind of in that beta phase. So I'd love to hear, what are some of your biggest learnings to date so far?
I guess the hardest thing that we had to learn was, how do we systemize something that typically has never been, or very few have been systemized before. What I mean by that is, how do you take what's very common to youth sport organizations, meaning all the stuff that hockey associations do, soccer associations do, all of those platforms, and make them so that they're systemized, that anybody can learn. So, I mean, any business follows kind of two paths. It's putting the right systems in place, and then putting the right people in those systems so that the outcomes are almost predictable. That typically doesn't happen with youth sports. Most of youth sports is a volunteer base. Most of the organizations are community run. There are a number of what I call fragmented independent youth sport businesses. It might be the goaltender coach. It might be the soccer coach. It might be the figure skating coach. It might be the martial arts person, that are all privately run health, fitness, and sport programs within a community. But there are very few that are actually scaled, such that that brand or that particular sport is offered under one brand right across the country. And so we had to kind of take what we saw as a working model, a small little independent sport entrepreneur, and look at the community-run programs and combine the two together so that we had the best of both worlds. And in order to experiment with that, we had to do it while our season was actually happening. And in floorball, our season typically is once a year. And so that everything we built leading up to that season, we had to wait till the season to test it. So it took a good 4 or 5 years of us having to get to where we can comfortably say that we've found a platform that can be used in the organized sport market, that can be layered with any sport for that matter. We just happen to use the sport of floorball in our system.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. That brings up a very interesting challenge that you face, in that you have to take it season by season. So I'm intrigued to hear a bit more about, how do you continue to grow and expand because of being such a seasonally based franchise? We'll get right back to the show, but do you feel frustrated trying to grow your franchise? Are you having trouble balancing your consumer and franchise development marketing? Do you wish there was an easier way? Imagine if you had a roadmap to take your franchise's marketing from costing you to making you money. That's why we've created the Franchise Growth Blueprint. To find out more, visit franchisegrowthblueprint.com. That's franchisegrowthblueprint.com. Now back to today's episode.
Well, that's a good question. And one thing I should make it clear is that at our very minimum buy-in, our single unit, we are what we call a lifestyle franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially what we are is we're a franchise that someone can purchase at a very low cost and a low risk, and dip their toe into the entrepreneurial world, meaning they can still run this business while they maintain a career, or they maintain a household, or maybe they even have another franchise. And so having it as seasonal is not really a threat at this. They don't necessarily have to invest a lot of money, nor do they have to work 40 hours a week plus all year round for one season. They can typically work whatever flexible hours they want to work throughout the year in a number of programs that we offer year round, such as minor hockey cross training programs, birthday parties. We have drop-in leagues and learn to play leagues. We have corporate team building events. So we have a number of what I call a one-off kind of floorball events that a franchisee would engage upon during whatever hours they wanted to invest throughout the year. That would lead all up to their season in the spring and bring in the bulk of their revenues. Not putting themselves at risk in a way that because it's only seasonal, they haven't quit their day job type of thing. Now, the caveat to that is if somebody said, hey, this is something I'd like to do more than just a lifestyle, we have the ability to have multiple units and add on communities, which typically would be adjacent to them, and they could run it full time if they wanted. And if they so choose, run multiple seasons. We only really require our franchisee to be bound to running one season as a very minimum. Somebody decided that they wanted to run a fall program and a winter program, and they had the time to do it and the wherewithal to do it, then we wouldn't be adverse to that.
I love the flexibility that you're giving your franchisees. That's great. So how are you finding helping your franchisees balance, this lifestyle, business and franchise that they have with other parts of their life?
Well, I mean, the real thing is that when we got in this business, we didn't get in, like I said, almost accidentally. We didn't necessarily get into a creative business that would demand more of people's time than what they could offer. Mm-hmm. And, sports isn't necessarily a year-round business, no matter what sport it is. Sports generally, youth sports particularly, are very seasonal. So we knew at the very get-go that the business model would be somewhat of a seasonal model. And it was just right in our wheelhouse of values anyway, because we really wanted to create something for somebody that they could do a number of things, but not compromise their lifestyle, if they so chose. So if they bought a single unit, it was important to us that they still have the ability to work what hours they wanted to work, keep a stable family life, keep their careers, and just look at this as a way to earn some extra income. More importantly, be involved in their community, where they can have a profound effect on the youth in sport, because sports is so much more than the sport itself. And part of the mission and part of the value and vision that we have with being a new sport is that, we want to make sure that anybody who buys into the franchisees has more value to add than just the business side. So it's very important to us that family values and relationships are just as important outside of the sport as they are in the sport. And so offering a complementary business opportunity for somebody to keep their life in check and in balance while being in business was important to us.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And that's a very common theme that I hear time and time again, is making sure you have a very strong cultural fit within your system, because one wrong apple can definitely ruin things. So that's great to hear that you're being picky. Well, it sounds like you're being picky right from the get-go to really build a strong foundation.
Absolutely. I've been in business for 30 years. I've owned a franchise for 15 of those 30 years. And, the one thing that's important to me, that when you get up a little older in age, you start looking at the value your business bring, not necessarily just the money. And so when the partners and I got together and we created this, the impetus behind this was that we needed to be sure that not only did it create value for the franchisee, but it equally created value for the community. And that was their two hallmarks of what we want to make sure our franchisees understand. Yeah, yes, you can come in and you can make some additional income, and you can use that additional income to put away in an education fund or pay for your child's university, take a family vacation, buy a new car, whatever the case may be. But as you're doing that, it's critical that the mission not be lost, and the fact that when you come home at the end of the day, you need to be as satisfied personally that you've brought some value to yourself, your family, and your community, in addition to the financial value that owning a business does.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So what has been one of your biggest wins to date?
I can't necessarily speak for our franchise. I think the sport itself, relatively unknown, a couple of wins that have helped not only bring light to the sport, but inadvertently helped our franchise, is when Hockey Canada got involved. And, they vetted the floorball sport itself. I remember going to Sweden with a representative from Hockey Canada. And, we're sitting in this arena. There's 14,000 people that are watching the final game between Sweden and Finland. And I could see the gentleman from Hockey Canada looking at it going, wow, this sport is a great complement to the existing hockey that we have. And they came back with the distributor at the time and created that program. And from that, we've been able to leverage that credibility of an iconic institution like Hockey Canada coming alongside small old wee sport of floorball. And we've been able to work with Hockey Canada on a number of school programs and a number of initiatives that has helped us bring the sport to the next level of awareness. Without that big win, we could very much be struggling in trying to build some credibility for the sport. And so I think that for me was a real milestone in the sport. The second for us is that just recently in May 2019, we hosted the men's U19 World Floorball Championships here in Halifax last May. And that meant that 16 countries out of the 74 countries, which comprised of 400 plus athletes and coaches, embarked on Halifax. And it gave us the opportunity over 36 games to see the world's best men's U19 players play on Canadian soil. It's something that's never been done before in North America. And so we're very fortunate to do that. In 2016, Belleville, Ontario did host the women's U19. So it's kind of the second of two world champions that we've now put in North America. And that gave the opportunity for a lot of local people to see the sport played at its highest level. I mean, you got to think that many people didn't know the sport even existed, let alone there were 74 countries and 400 plus athletes in a tournament. So it was quite impressive. It gave us a leg up. It allowed us to leverage that tournament to open more doors and get into communities and get more people exposed to the sport of floorball and all the fun it can be.
Wow, that must have been an amazing experience and a super powerful partnership that you have going now.
Absolutely, yeah, no question. These are events you pull off that take a lot of work and a lot of buy-in, and at the end of the day, it's for the greater good of bringing the sport here and planting a stake in the ground, so to speak, and with any hope, working from here outward, westerly towards the rest of Canada, and ultimately down into the U.S. to bring the sport of floorball.
Very exciting. So, because this is a ongoing conversation that we're going to be having, my last question to you for this episode is: what do you want to accomplish by the next time we chat?
Well, obviously, franchise growth is my number one priority right now. We are what many would dub as an incubating franchising startup. We're 2 strong, and by next time I'd like to be 6 strong. And so if that happens in the next 6 months, I deem that a success. At this point, it's very important that the next franchisees we bring on board are well vetted. Not that we wouldn't vet everybody well, but these are going to be our early adopters. Mm-hmm. It's not for everybody. You know, there are people that will wait till franchises are successful. There's others that buy into the value prop and buy into what the concept is and really want to get an early start. So it's very important for us to make sure that those first franchisees are ones that are near perfection. I always use the analogy, and most people will be familiar with this. You know, when you build a subdivision in a community, you know, you put a lot of time and energy in the infrastructure, a lot of upfront costs. And the first few houses that are built there are the ones that people are going to look and feel and drive by. And they're also the owners of those houses are the ones that are going to have to put up with the trucks going up and down and the other homes being built. But eventually, as that subdivision grows and matures, the first few early home buyers will reap the longer term benefits. And that's what we're hoping to accomplish here, is to get a number of really early adopters in, and people understand that it's a growing process. We are coming with a minimal viable product, but enough that we've proven over the last 4 years that works. And hopefully we find the right next 4 to 5 people and we make it work, so that our next conversation, we're talking about success stories in our young franchisees. And we're looking towards more of those in the future.
Sounds good. I really like that goal, and I love that analogy that you used. Awesome, Anthony. So thank you very much for coming on this episode and this podcast. It's much appreciated, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you again in 6 months from now.
Well, great, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. Every bit of exposure and every bit of anything we can get to highlight the sport, and of course our franchisees greatly appreciate it, and I'm very thankful and very grateful.
No problem. Take care, Anthony.
You too. All the best.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Franchise Marketing Podcast. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend and subscribe now so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And until then, happy marketing.